Hope is here. The way to break free with your host, Angela Pedigo, will light a flame within you. Host Angela Pedigo is an author, speaker, and certified life recovery, grief, and joy restoration coach. Angela uses her own life experiences to help you navigate and guide you to success. She also has developed tools that incorporate her faith and her drive to overcome any obstacle in life. So please welcome the host of The Way to Break Free, Angela Pedigo.
Welcome, everybody, to The Way to Break Free. I'm your host, Angie Pedigo. I'm glad you're joining us today. I have my good friend, Cara Ellinger, here today. Cara and I met a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, at a recovery event that, we were both attending, learning some more about some things. And we've just clicked since. And I love her. I love her energy. Just her love for Christ, and she is truly one of those people that's the hands and feet of Jesus. So I can't wait for you to learn more about her today. Cara, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for all those compliments. Like, yes, ma'am.
I just love it. I'm so glad that you could be here. And, we were talking before we went live today, just how good God is. And so I'm just going to let her jump in and tell us, take us back. Where does your journey with Jesus start?
Well, it starts when I was just a few days old. My mom started taking me to church. And so I grew up in church, and then I became a teenager. That happened. And I know everything itis. And basically just at a very young age, I was 16 and I went out on my own and met my husband and just started living life.
Yeah.
And God wasn't part of that.
Oh.
And so not that I went out, on the deep end or anything like that. I was just living life. I was basically a good person. I was doing good things, being kind, and I just walked away from God. I was a born again believer growing up. And then I just decided that I was just going to, it wasn't even a decision. It was just kind of, it happened.
It just happens.
Yeah.
It happens very sly, don't it? It
does.
Creeps in little bits at a time.
Yep. And I didn't even realize until I had reconnected with God that I had walked away from God. And really what did it was when life hits you, you just kind of keep trudging along and just focus on the problems.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I focused on the problems and not on him and, his grace.
Yeah.
And my husband, I loved him. He was a very hard man to be married to. And looking back over, that all started from, I grew up without a father. And when when I didn't know my father at all, the first time I talked to him was in 9th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So he was never part of my life. I talked to him, a 9th grade teenager, and then a father on the phone.
Yes.
That was an awkward conversation. That was hello. And then crickets.
Oh, we gotta jump into that a little bit for just a minute.
Yes.
Let's just jump in there for a minute.
So my mom raised me as a single parent, and she always tried to look for my father, but he had moved down to Florida. Mm-hmm. So I was up in northern Indiana. So he wasn't anywhere in the vicinity of where I was. And in 9th grade, there was a company called, a company who would help find people who were behind on child support, because he had never paid child support. Mm-hmm. And they found him.
Wow.
And they called my mom and they said, we found him. And mom's like, well, she wants to talk to him. I didn't know I wanted to talk to him. I was like, I guess.
You were voluntold?
Yeah, I was voluntold. Exactly. So I did. I went to their office, and in their office, they got him on the phone. And it was a hi. And he said hi. And he's like, how you doing? And I'm like, fine. And then that was it. That was the sum of our conversation. Yeah, it was very weird. But, growing up without a father, my situation was a little different. It wasn't that he just genuinely didn't want me.
Yeah.
And very unwanted from day one. Trying to fit in, trying to find, if a parent doesn't want you, how do you fit in? My mom did the best she could. She was a single parent. Mm-hmm. She was working and trying to go back to school and, doing the best she could. And no matter how much she did, that vacancy was still there.
Yes.
And I was still deemed unwanted and not good enough. And so,
what was that like as a kid? Did that affect you much?
It did. I became so insecure and everything and now as an adult, I know it was just the devil messing with me, because the devil will mess with kids too.
Oh yeah.
From a very young age. Not, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you're not wanted. Oh,
the lies.
Yep, the lies. Like, oh, don't even bother trying to do that, because they're not going to want you either. Your own dad didn't want you. And I mean, from a very young age, I can remember those thoughts going through my head. And so, yeah, it just I didn't have that role model of what a father was supposed to be. So when I started dating my husband, I overlooked a lot. I overlooked a lot of red flags. Not that he was a bad man,
right?
But probably not God's choice for me.
Yeah.
But God took care of me in it. And I decided at a very young age, it doesn't matter. I will be married to my children's father. And that was,
good for you.
Yeah, that was going to be it. And I was. And we went through a lot. But again, I didn't have that role model to know what a father was, to know what a husband was. Mm-hmm. So I was just winging it.
Yeah.
And I became a chameleon, and whoever I was around is who I blended into. And then we started, Dennis and I started dating in 95, and we had a child in 96, and then we got married in 97, and then had another child, mm-hmm. another one.
Yes.
But all of my children came, I was married to their father.
Yes.
And that's all that mattered to me. He was an over-the-road truck driver, so he was never home. Mm-hmm. And a good thing and a bad thing, mm-hmm. Pros and cons of everything.
Yes.
But through that, we ended up we moved from northern Indiana to Arizona. And then we went from Arizona to Tennessee. And then from Tennessee, ended up right in the middle of small town USA, Kentucky. And I love it. I love my small town. But I just, looking back, my mom tried so hard to find my dad. So found him in 9th grade. I'm going to back up a little bit here.
Go ahead.
Found him in 9th grade. And then my mom, my grandma, and I took a road trip to see him. So I got to meet him.
So you did.
I did meet him for the first time. I believe it was in 9th grade. Mm-hmm. And then spent a half a week with him there down in Florida. Loved Florida. Had the best time. He is, his occupation is a race car driver. Mm-hmm. So we were at the shop, and I was like, he could have taught me how to rebuild an engine, and I would have soaked it all in. Right? I was just, couldn't tell me nothing, living my best life. We go to the beach, when I would, spend the day with him, and then I go back with my mom and grandma, and mom would take me to the beach and to the ocean. And, that's my happy place. But so that was 9th grade. And then 10th grade, he came up, in the summer, he came up for the 4th of July mm-hmm. up to Indiana, because that's where he grew up. Mm-hmm. And so I saw him then. And then just a few years ago, my half sister, she, his mother passed away. And so on his way back from Indiana from the funeral, they stopped in Bowling Green to eat. And so my sister called me. She's like, okay, I've got him stopped. I thought he knew. He had no idea.
He didn't know.
He had no idea.
Gonna be there.
Yep. I come sauntering up onto the patio, and he just went. And I was like, okay, well. So I FaceTime my best friend. I'm like, look. Kind of broke the ice. And then just my half sister and my sister, we hung out. And then he kind of, I think he was like waiting for some kickback. But here's the thing. So God moves me to small town USA, and we don't know anybody up here. Like how we got to this house in the middle of nowhere, it was all God. Mm-hmm. And we worked hard in it when we lived in Arizona. We both did. We both made really good money. We worked hard, but we played harder. Mm-hmm. And I am by definition a prodigal. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I walked away from God's grace. Not that he took it.
Yeah.
But I fully gave it up. I'm like, I'm just doing
That's
life.
a good thing that you point out right there, because sometimes we can easily get in that, why me, God? Why, mm-hmm. This victim mentality, for lack of a better term. But I mean, we all battle that at some point. A lot of us do. And looking at him like, why me? And sometimes it's just we've gone
AWOL.
or he's trying to show us something.
Yeah. And that's what happened. So ultimately, Dennis and I, like I said, like we made this amount of money. We spent that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we live paycheck to paycheck. We have nothing to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
Had the speedboat, like all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And God had to take almost every materialistic possession away from me to get me back. And so by just crazy happenstances,
Mm-hmm.
like even baby clothes, when you have kids, how you keep their favorite outfits. Goats ate those. I'm talking goats ate those. I'm talking the most ridiculous way of losing my possessions because I valued them. I am not even.
That's so priceless.
Goats took a bunch of my stuff, but God, because they were in a Rubbermaid tub on the top shelf, and God got them down and opened.
Wow.
Yes.
Goats are relentless too.
And they will eat everything.
Yes.
They will. But I literally have, I just had a visual of the goats eating. I'm like, that's my child's Notre Dame outfit that they all worn. I need that back. It was gone. So, but, just that, again, doing life on my own.
Yeah.
And looking back, I can see where God tried here, gave me room to respond. I didn't respond, tried here again, had to go through this natural consequence. Because, if we don't listen, there are natural consequences to our actions.
Yes.
We're not the victim. We're just facing accountability.
Yeah.
And not, again, I was basically a good person. I tried to be kind. I had an attitude. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
And I was stealing as much money as we made. I still had a very hard marriage.
Money is not going to buy happiness, and it's not going to have an easy life.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, it was easy, made it easier to pay my bills.
Well, yeah.
And that's a relief, and that does give you comfort when your bills are paid, but it doesn't bring you happiness.
Did you find that you had put more comfort in the fact that you had money to pay
100%.
your bills than God to supply your needs?
100%. I did not need God. I did not. And like, again, looking back, I can see where God really was there and there and there. He literally provided us with jobs that made enough money exceedingly and abundantly that if I wanted to go to Disneyland every weekend, I could.
Yeah.
He put us in a location that was perfect. But he wasn't doing that. I was doing that. I was the one going to work for 12 hours, which I love my job. So I did volunteer for overtime. My husband's the one that, drove over the road. God didn't do none of that. That was us. And yeah, I can definitely, when I can see where it was all us, but if you would have asked me if I was going to heaven, I was going to heaven.
Yeah.
Because I knew God. I got saved when I was younger, grew up in the church. I know the rules of religion. I'm a good person. Remember, I would lie every so often, but I would try to honor my mom.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a dad, so that was that void. I wasn't killing nobody. I wasn't murdering anybody. I wasn't stealing nothing. I was a good person. And until I realized the rules of religion don't always get you to heaven.
Yeah.
And
yes.
God's got to move you. And, but anyway, so, end up in Kentucky. I keep circling back to Kentucky because he put me here. And
was that where the transformation of your life started to happen in Kentucky?
Yep. Because I didn't know anybody. So it was me and the two kids.
How old were your kids at that point?
So they were middle school, middle school. And I think back in 2001. That's been almost 13 years.
Because I'm envisioning this as you're talking, and living in these different locations. Because every time you move, it's like a different culture.
I get a whole new world. I get a whole new restart.
And then if he's over the road driving, and then you've got the kids, you and the kids
rebuild a life. So when we moved from North, how that started in 2000, we went to Disneyland. I went in the semi with him. We owned our own semi. And I fell in love with the desert. And he grew up, I swore growing up I was going to marry a farmer. and I married a Southern California boy. Again, not sure that's who God had picked for me.
Did you want a goat farmer? You wanted a goat farmer.
I just wanted a farmer. So one of my best friends growing up, they had a pig farm. And so I would go out in the morning and help her dad, like, because my best friends, their fathers became my father. So what I knew of a dad was that. And so, I mean, my friend Dawn, her dad, Vonda and Rudy, they had a farm. And I would go out with Rudy in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it was, and help feed the pigs. And I loved it. I loved it. I wanted to marry. I got really upset one day because he docked their tails and clipped their teeth.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I was gonna marry me a farmer. Married me a California boy. That's life.
I love it. Well, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
We're back from the break, and Cara, I want to, something that was kind of stewing in my thoughts. I see this happen a lot, especially with, and I try to stress this, fathers, you are so important. And it's kind of funny that we're coming off of Father's Day, but fathers are so, so important. For many, many reasons, obviously, but as a child, our earliest understanding of a father role is going to come from what we see out of our earthly father.
Mm-hmm.
In order, if as somebody's trying to teach us in life about our heavenly father, you know, God as a heavenly father, how will we know what that means? How will we know what that looks like? So whatever our experience is, I find this happen a lot of times. This may not be this way for everybody, but for a lot of the people that I work with, we find that we project, or did in the early days of developing that relationship with God, that we're projecting our experience with our earthly father. Oh, God must be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if my dad's this way, then God must be this way, until we learn him. And many times people won't get in a relationship with God to figure out who God really is. So, or Jesus for that matter. So tell me, how did that affect you? You know, you were talking about you were raised in church and you knew who God was, and, but then you got away from him. But did you have a relationship with him? Like, did you know who God was, or did you just project like that?
I projected like that, and I did it without knowing I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we come to Kentucky, and I started, I'm bored. I didn't have to work at the time. So I started watching some pastors on TV, And through that, because they just happened to be on when I turned the TV on. And through that, I rededicated my life to Christ on my front porch in the middle of nowhere. As the hummingbirds were around me, it was great. Yeah, God is good. But so once I rededicated my life, then God started working on me. So because I didn't realize how much hurt I had been harboring. When you go through so much hurt and things like that in this crazy, twisted way, that becomes your comfort.
Yes.
So to step outside of that hurt, like, you know what's coming with it. You know the emotions that come with it. You know the feelings that come with, like, you just know, you know it. So when God starts breaking that off, it feels very uncomfortable because he's growing you, you know, to a better way. Like, you don't have to carry this hurt around. Like, let me carry that for you.
Did you feel like you were losing your identity?
Very.
Because you knew who you were in the hurt?
I did. Exactly. I didn't know, like, I harbored hurt from my father. I had a hard marriage. My husband was a very good man, but again, our marriage was hard. I don't think that's who God had intended me to be with, but once I was in, I was in. And that did come from not having a father growing up. So when God's like, okay, got to kind of let go of all the ways that you operate and operate how in my love, you know, let my love cover that, all of that. Then I'm like, well, one, it sounds crazy because I can't see God.
Yes.
I know he's real. I know he's real. Like, you can't see the air, but we still breathe it. So it's real. So how do I trust a God that I can't see, even though I know he's real? I know the Bible is real. I know that's his spoken word. But how do I trust him to take care of that part of my life when even my earthly father couldn't?
Oh, yeah.
So how do I do that? And I just started praying. And I'm like, Lord. So I started giving lip service. Basically, I'm like, Lord, you can have that part of my life. And then I wouldn't actually give it. I'm like, no, we got to keep those walls up. You can't really have that. Like, I'm gonna still hold on to that little bit that I know of me. Because again, I had always had that. So I didn't know how to operate outside of it. So God just started, like, through spending time with him daily, and that was talking with him. And growing up, I thought prayer had to be a Holy Father, thou shalt not, you know, and it's not. It's talking to God like I'm talking to you.
Yes.
And God loves when we are raw. And even when I would get scared, or the one time I got scared and I said, Lord, that was so scary. And he just spoke to my spirit and said, I know, but thank you. Like, he just wants that rawness from us. He's a big God. He can handle it. So it just got to the point over time that I'm like, okay, Lord, I think I'm really ready, not for you to be my dad, but because the Bible says you're my heavenly father. I don't want that, but I do need this spot healed because my mom is relentless. So my mom had found my father. Well, that company had found my father. Then he walked away from me again. Then my mom found him and he had walked away from me. So, like, my mom found him again and found me a half sister in the process. Like, not everybody has a long lost half sister, but I do.
Yeah.
And so he had walked away again. And so I was just like, okay, Lord, I think I'm ready to really just surrender. I don't need a dad. I literally said this. I don't need a dad. I've grown up without a dad, but that hurt. Like, it really hurts. Like, I need you to heal that. So I started allowing him to heal it. And so I could talk about my dad and I wouldn't feel down and I wouldn't feel sad and I wouldn't feel ripped off or neglected, unwanted. And then, so here's the thing, you know, God can use really religious, like the Bible, you know, you have really religious people. God can use really religious ways to get your attention. And he had to use a very religious way to get my attention. I was watching TV one day and there's a show. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but there's a character named Ziva on it. And a fictional show. And this character Ziva is she just yelled out her dad had gotten hurt and she just screamed out in desperation across the room, Abba.
Oh.
And I said, I want that. Real religious, used a fictional cop show.
Oh,
Ultra
wow.
religious. And I said, that's, I right there, paused it, had DVR, paused it, and I said, that's what I want. And that is what broke that off of me to allow him to move in me.
That is so funny you say that. I was facilitating a recovery class last night, and a girl was giving her testimony, and it was so similar because she heard Abba and she said, I want that.
Yes, yes, when you call him by his name.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, God is a big God.
Yes.
He has a lot of different roles. He is our provider. He's our protector. He's our father.
Yes.
He's our comfort. He's our peace. And to allow him, a God who I cannot see, to trust him enough to become my father.
Mm-hmm.
So after that moment on that show, I love that show. I just started, every time I prayed, I would say, hey, Abba. And I would just refer, like it had to be intentional. I tried to refer to him as dad, but it felt so foreign to me.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, that's foreign. And it's okay.
Yes.
Like I had to make it okay that I didn't have to say certain words.
Yeah.
So I started off by calling him just Abba.
Yeah.
So when I prayed to him as Abba, and I still kept it, in between, in the box.
Yes, yes.
And then as I became more comfortable, then it became like, okay, well, now I feel like I'm coming to you as a child.
Yes.
And so now I've grown enough with that relationship because I grew up with the rules of religion. Not that I was taught he's sitting on a throne going to strike me with lightning. I was never taught that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was taught you cannot lie, you cannot steal, you cannot murder, you cannot do this, cannot do that, cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship side of God, that father relationship, is you can come to me.
Yes.
You don't need to go through anybody else to get directly to me. You can, just I'm here and we can walk side by side through this. And so now I'm to the point that I'm like, okay, it's your daughter. And because when I'm having a bad day, I'm like, and let me tell you what happened, Dad. So now it's just, so in the process, I want to go back just real quick. In the process of dealing with all this, my friends here in Kentucky just didn't know about my father's situation. Mm-hmm. That is something that is a hurt that I hold dear. I don't want questions about it because I don't know how to answer those questions. I don't know why my dad didn't want me. Mm-hmm. I don't know why he genuinely stayed away from me on purpose, mm-hmm. repeatedly. Mm-hmm. But I forgive him. Like if he were to show up to my door right now and be like, hey, I need a kidney, I'd be like, all right, I'll go get tested. And there wouldn't be any qualms about it. God has helped me forgive him. But I had met my now best friend, and she's amazing. And so anyways, when we first became friends, she called me daddy's girl. Like we were talking about God, and she just said, you're such a daddy's girl. And I'm like, not me. Not me. I'm like, oh, wait. So now I'm like, that's probably my favorite thing
that anybody's ever
said to me is, you're such a daddy's girl. And we were talking about God, of course. She didn't, she knew I didn't grow up with a dad, but I don't think at that point she had a full picture of my father, my earthly father. But yeah, so she called me daddy's girl. And I'm like,
did you ever think you would hear that or even have that?
No, I didn't. I did not think that. And it's funny because I went home that night and wrote it in my journal. I'm like, and I was called this today. And so that's commemorated forever with a date. But yeah, so that, the excitement, the happiness, the joy.
Oh,
he meets me, he met me, and he meets everybody where they are. Even the most devout atheist, one he loves so much right now, he sent Jesus. Like it's all true.
Yes.
Here's the thing. And for someone who doesn't know God, like I did have a good foundation. Mm-hmm. And God does say in the Bible that if they're raised with that foundation, they'll come back. Well, to come back, you got to go away. So me walking away from his grace and from his salvation didn't surprise him. Coming back, he knew that would happen.
Yes.
He's already there. But for someone who doesn't have that foundation, who has such a hurt,
yes.
church is so real.
Oh, and it's very common.
And unfortunately, sometimes people who, the Christian community can be the meanest because we get caught in the rules of religion.
Yes.
Again, I grew up with the don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. I had worn shorts to church one day, and because I was at a friend's house, that's all I had. And I actually had somebody tell me I shouldn't wear shorts to church. Well, I wear my holy jeans now because I have that relationship with God. He's like, honey, I don't care how you come to church, just come.
Yeah.
But this is so foreign to people who don't have a foundation.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to talk to y'all for a minute. If it's foreign, please just reach out to me. Like, I think I'm tagged in something.
Yes.
Because if you don't understand it, then you're never going to go to it.
Oh, so true.
And so I would rather take the time and explain who God really is than for him to be judged by the actions of,
I want to jump into that a little further.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com. or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were just about to dive into your relationship, how that started to evolve with God, like it's more than just the rules, kind of concept. I noticed this a lot today, that where people start missing God in their lives is we get that ticket punched. We've experienced that salvation moment where we believed in Jesus and we believed in what he came and did, and that God raised him from the dead. And, like that, we experience that salvation moment and then we stop there. Like we hit the destination point when it's actually the beginning point. It's actually the beginning. And there is the destination point is when we get to the other side, at the end of this life. In between times is where we get to build relationship. And many people know who he is, but many people don't know him.
Right.
His character, his nature. Like, how can we talk to him? What all does he do? What can he do? Rather than what I shouldn't do.
Right.
Which is important. We need to know those things, but like, what can he do?
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. So like, we all have the knowledge of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just take those rules and kind of scooch them over here.
Mm-hmm.
They're important, but basically do good, do right.
Yes.
Don't break the rules, don't break the laws, But when you do make a mistake, you're totally covered under grace.
Yes.
So here's the one thing. Once you become saved, then we're under that grace. And that's one of the biggest things that needs to be known in that relationship. God is not waiting to strike you with a lightning rod.
Yes.
He loves you so much. Even before you were saved, he couldn't love you anymore. But once you get saved, you're covered under his grace.
Mm-hmm.
That grace makes it okay to mess up. It just, ultimately, we're all going to die. It's where we're going to spend our eternity is what we're going for. Do we want to spend it in hell because it's real, or spend it in heaven? But we get to enjoy his relationship while we're on earth. And my husband passed away almost 5 years ago. He got saved right before he passed away. He didn't get to enjoy that comfort, that knowledge of having someone with him at all times, like I do. So with this relationship with God, how I have built this, I've just talked to him. And I felt foolish at first because I'm sitting, I love front porches. So I would be sitting on my front porch. I've just watched a pastor or two on TV because, again, I have nothing to do. I'm a stay-at-home mom besides clean the house while the kids are at school. So I would watch pastor on TV. Then I would go out and read my Bible on the porch. And then I would just talk to him. And through that uncomfortableness and through that, the neighbors are thinking I'm nuts because I'm on the porch. I'm on the porch just talking, and where my porch is and where the road is, they won't be able to hear me, but they'll be able to see me, and I talk with my hands. So this is what my neighbors see. Like, that's what the neighbors are seeing. So, but through that, then all of a sudden, and it was a suddenly thing for me, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell God this. Oh, I can't wait to tell Jesus this. Like, Jesus is my bestie.
Yeah.
And my husband was gone on the road. So there were I couldn't go running to him all the time because, he's doing whatever. And so I turned to Jesus. I turned to God and allowed, that's just going through the motions until my body caught up, until my spirit caught up. Like, okay, if I'm going to be a friend with you, I'm going to sit at a Mexican restaurant and talk with you for 2 hours.
Which is what we've done.
But that's how you get to know someone, by talking to them.
Yes.
Same thing with God. It feels weird. It feels funny because you can't see him. I've even sat like a chair in front of me and I'm like, okay, I've seen pictures of you. So that's who I envision. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Like, it's not, God's not going to,
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Exactly. But that's how I built that relationship. And then over time, you just have it.
The key thing in all of what you're describing is that you invited him and you spent time with him. Yes. We can't grow relationships with people we won't spend time with.
Exactly.
And it is not failure on his part to show up.
No, he's not. No, he's always there. Whether we want him there or not, he's always everywhere.
And he also goes where he gets invited.
He does. He's a gentleman.
Yes.
He's not. That's the thing. We have free will. He's not going to force himself. Now, he wants what's best for us. So sometimes he'll allow us to go through some hard stuff in order to get us back to him, which is what he did with me.
Yes.
He allowed all my material possessions to be taken away. But now I have a story of redemption. Because just like the prodigal son in the Bible, he took his father's inheritance and went and squandered it and was living with the pigs, was going to eat the pig slop. But went back, he became humble, went back to his dad, and his dad dropped it all and ran to him. And kings don't run. They don't run. But our dad, the king, he runs for us.
Yes.
So, we can all have that. Yeah. We can all have that relationship with him. And, but again, it's spending that time. And there are Christians. And I don't, this is kind of harsh and I don't mean it that way, but sometimes when we go through hard things, we just check those good Christian boxes. Like, because I've taken my focus off of God and my comfort and my supplier and my peace, and I put it onto my problem. Okay, I'm going to church for that hour. Okay. And I've said, God bless you at the store. I'm wearing my Jesus pin, or I've got my Jesus bumper sticker, checking those boxes. And that's great. But to have that real relationship with him, where even though he's not in skin, he doesn't have skin on him, he's not tangible, he is still as real as you and I are.
Yes.
And that's where, you just, it's unexplainable how much peace comes with that.
It is. And so you think you're living life when you're away from him and you're doing it yourself, kind of thing, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then when you come back to him and then you start actually building that relationship and you find out, like,
this is truly living.
Right. You don't miss it. Do you miss that? Do you miss the possessions? Do you miss the thing? Do you miss that lifestyle?
If I would have known. Now, let me tell you, like, we have fun.
Yeah.
Like, sin is fun. If you're not having fun when you're sitting, you're doing it wrong. I mean, because where we live, like, we were just a couple hours from Vegas, like Disneyland, like, we were perfectly situated or located. So, but knowing what I know now and the relationship that I have now, I would give it up all willingly, all of it up in an instant. And it wouldn't even take a full heartbeat.
Yes.
Because I am so genuinely fulfilled with happiness and peace. And my life is not easy. My life at times just crumbles around me. I mean, but I've got that peace. Like when my husband passed away, he, over a truck driver, didn't take care of himself, didn't have, it is what it is. He went into kidney failure, and once they diagnosed him, I didn't even have him 4 more years. And I woke up one morning and found him in our hallway. So with that, like, I grieved so hard because I didn't know if he was saved. I'm gonna be honest. At first, I couldn't even grieve his death. I grieved his eternity. And my best friend kept saying, he's in heaven. And but I need to know. And God was faithful. And I now know that Dennis is definitely in heaven. So then I could grieve the death. But then the grief became so heavy that I knew God was there mentally. Like, I can stand on the word of God.
Yes.
It says in the Bible that he will not leave me. Even in my darkest hour, he will not leave me. He is right there with me. So I knew he was there. I just couldn't feel him. And the devil will manipulate our feelings. But the grief was so heavy. And then that's where having your friends and your community, who you hang out with, those relationships are just as important.
They are.
Because when it got to that, reached out to my best friend and I just said, I'm not doing good. Like, God made me a naturally happy person. And I've gone 3 months with crying just every day. I'm not doing good. And she prayed, like, I wasn't even with her.
Yeah.
Just sent her a text. And then I realized 3 days later that I hadn't cried. And I'm like, there you are. There you are. Even though I'm still in this grief, there was a move of God that I could tangibly see. I didn't cry for 3 days. That was God. And when you have that relationship, it's those little God winks that you're like, oh, there you are. There you are. And again, people who don't have a foundation or who don't know him or who've been so church hurt that they've blocked him out, this is probably going to all sound foreign and crazy. And, people will be like, oh, he's just a sky daddy. Well, he's a lot more than that.
Yeah, he is.
And ever present and real. And
when you ask him for something specific and he answers you specifically, it grows your faith so immensely that you want to ask him again.
Right.
And you want to invite him in again. And then he just keeps expanding that faith. I think a lot of people sometimes think that you have to have this massive amount of faith in order to get a move of God in your life. Yeah. Because he'll take that little drop and if you'll ask something specific, I always try to tell people that, pray in specifics.
Yes.
Because when he answers specifically, then you know who did that.
Exactly. And here's the thing. God is a very personal God. He knows he said, I know how many hairs you have on your head. Now, I'm female and I shed a lot of hair and he keeps track of all that. And he does it with all of us. If he is that personal with me that I can talk to him about anything, he wants to take care of us. He wants to be our dad. He wants that personal level.
I want to go back to something you said.
Uh-huh.
You talked about the life of sin, and sin is fun, but you would give it all
all
the way to be where you're at in this this relationship with God now. And a lot of people hear that and think that's, so cliche or whatever. But here's the thing. We're going to feel that hurt that we feel with something.
Right.
Sin or God.
Exactly.
One or the other. Sin or God. We're going to feel that hurt. Sometimes, like over the last couple of years, and walking through my own journey and other people's journeys with them, there's one common thread that when people are living far away from God, there's something. There's something in there. There's a void. There's something. It's get to the void rather than correct the behavior. Because if God can reach that void and feel that spot, then by default, you don't need those things anymore. You don't need
that's the thing. Like all the actions, so I grew up with a dad, didn't know what that was supposed to be. So then I married a husband who, great man, but just verbally condescending. Like he would verbally say what I felt my dad was saying. So when my dad was saying I was unwanted and not good enough, my husband was more than happy to verbally tell me I was not good enough and I would never be this good. And I would, that was quick. So that sin, just filling that void.
Yes.
And because, I'm not going to let anybody have that part.
Yes.
Because, this is what that part looks like. I didn't know, I had prayed one day. I was like, because I was just kind of getting to the end of my rope with my husband. I was back with God and I wanted to honor my marriage as far as like staying with him and not getting divorced. And, I just felt like it was so ingrained in me that I would be married to my children's father, that I was willing to put up with a lot. And I just said, Lord, and God just said, he said to my spirit, you expect him to love you how I love you when he doesn't know my love.
Oh, that's good. So, we're going to take a quick break right there and we'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Welcome back. Cara, I want to pick up where we left off.
Yes.
God had just told you something really powerful.
Yes. Yep.
That your husband can't love you the way you're expecting to because he didn't know his love.
Because he didn't know God's love.
What did that do to you?
It stopped me in my tracks. It stopped me in my tracks, and I quit looking at my husband to treat me how I wanted, like how with a love that I wanted to be loved with, because I had never had that love.
Did it build an empathy toward him more than a
Compassion,
like a villain?
beyond compassion. And it, again, very hard, very rough talking, a lot of bickering. But my love for him, God gave me a renewed love for him.
Yeah.
And it covered a multitude of sins.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It always starts with that empathy and compassion.
I'm telling you. And when you and if you don't feel like you have compassion, then go out and serve somebody.
Which is a perfect segue to lead into, Cara, you serve. I mean, you serve. Tell us about
my happy place.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So I just serve with just about anybody. Like my heart's passion is serving the homeless community.
Yes.
The ones that are forgotten, the ones that, there are homeless communities out there that don't have the phones, the government phones, things like that. Those are the ones I have to go looking for. Yes. That's where my heart is. And then I do a lot of volunteer work through our Dream Center in Scottsville. And I love that place, and I love the people in there. And then I help facilitate an AA meeting on Wednesday night in the jail for the ladies.
That's awesome.
So when my husband passed away, that serving others is how I healed, which the homeless had always, feeding the homeless and helping has been going on for years.
Yes.
But kind of branching out into more volunteer areas.
Yes.
That happened since my husband passed away.
How did that help you heal?
When you're serving others, you can't focus on yourself. And it originally started with, if I just stay busy enough, I don't have to grieve. Because that first 3 months was so heavy, so hard, and I'm just going to back up just a little bit. So 2 years prior, I was getting ready. It was October. I was getting ready for work one day. And I was just like, doing my morning prayer. Lord, I am so glad and I am so thankful that Christmas is here. Like, I am one of those crazy Christmas people. And I'm like, and it's October.
You would have Christmas year round.
I still have Christmas trees. But they're so pretty. It's the ceramic one.
Yes.
But I was like, Lord, just thank you that the season is here. And because sometimes Christmas movies start before Halloween, and I'll skip right over Halloween. I don't need that. Give me Christmas. Yes. But anyways, I was just really excited. And he just spoke to my spirit and said, if something bad happened, would you still love this time of year? Well, that stopped me dead in my tracks, because he's not going to ask something like that if something great's going to happen.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, my grandma passed away. It was 11 months later, or no, it was short. My grandma passed away. And then 11 months later, my husband passed away. Wow. Yep. And so I'm just like, preparing me.
Yes.
Preparing me. He loves us so much.
Yes. Yes.
That if we pay attention, he will prepare us for what's coming.
Yep. But
we can rest in his peace that he's got us.
Yes.
And so I just started serving others. I stayed busy, and you can only be at work for so long.
Yes.
And so I just built up. At one point, I was not at my house every night until about 9 o'clock to get home. And now it's just my joy. Now I get more joy out of it than the people I serve.
Oh, so, yeah. Serving will do way more for you than
anybody
it will for
else.
Them. Yes.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Because God chooses us that. He could choose anybody, but he chose me to go out and feed those under the bridge.
Yes. And you do such good work.
Thank you.
The Dream Center too they do amazing work. And it's you're all touching a lot of lives. I loved this winter when you guys opened up for the homeless there at the Dream Center.
Happy place.
She's like, slumber party.
Yes. Ultimately, my goal, my prayer, my passion is to have housing for the homeless.
Yeah.
But that was such a great preview of what God has in store for me.
Well, we're about to wrap it up for the day, but Cara, I want to ask you one thing.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
would you leave the listeners with today?
God is good. He is real. He is present. He is with you. Even if you've never heard of him before, reach out to someone who goes to a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church. Yes. Reach out to me. Reach out to Angie.
Yeah.
Let us introduce you to who God really is and start that relationship.
I love it. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I thank Bold Brave TV for hosting the show. And so we will see you guys next week.
This has been The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo. The one thing Angela attributes her personal victories to is her relationship with God and her deep faith. Tune in each week and hear stories and testimonies of people in personal and professional trenches and how they overcome them with their own faith in God. The Way to Break Free has something for everyone, everywhere. Right here, Wednesdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.